Okay, what I'm going to do today is I've fitted the Campark camera with a 128 gig memory card, which is good for about 6 hours and 45 minutes of recording from both cameras simultaneously. So this is a test to see how it performs with a 128 gig memory card. And I know someone's going to look this up on Amazon and say that it only supports 16 and 32. That is incorrect, as it does support 64, as I've already tested, and now I'm testing it with 128 gig memory card. So ignore any comments that people make that will claim that I'm using the wrong memory card and that the information on Amazon is not correct. I've also mounted the camera a little higher up in the window. I'm not using the suction cup mount this time. I'm using the low profile double-sided tape mount which sticks to the inside of the window. This mount also can swivel, and you can pan and tilt the camera on this mount. It just gets it up a little bit higher out of the passenger's face, basically, and gets it right up into the highest part of the window, out of the way. And I've also turned off the high dynamic range, or wide dynamic range as they call it, recording, and set it to more conventional, because I have a sneaking suspicion that that is why the picture was blown out a bit on my initial test, was because I had the video was recorded in wide dynamic range, and my editing software that I'm using does not support HDR. I'm using an older version of Adobe Premiere that I purchased back in the day when they sold you a license without monthly strings attached. One of the problems I have with the current crop of software is that you have to keep paying every month to use it. And if you decide that you don't want to pay them anymore, the software becomes disabled and you can't access any of your old archived material to edit or make any changes. So once you get into that software rental model, you're pretty much locked down. You got to keep paying, and even if you want to change platforms and use something else, if you want to access any of your older material that you had created under that rental model, you've got to keep paying them. So I don't go for the model of renting my software. I use software that I purchased, and then I can always access my files. So I won't be upgrading my editing software anytime soon, so I guess the HDR editing is out for me.
Okay, I'm going to let the video play here for a bit in dual screen mode so you can see the front and the back cameras. You can see the highway is deserted today. This is very unusual. Usually it's a lot busier than this. But I'm going to let the cameras play in sync here and just give you guys a look at what type of quality you can expect to get off of one of these cameras. As I say, I turned off the wide dynamic range recording, and I've just set everything, all the controls are set to automatic. Auto exposure, auto white balance, everything's set to auto. So this is what you get with all the default settings. It's looking pretty good. Some of the brightest clouds in the center of the screen there are a little bit blown out, but other than that, the light metering looks to be pretty good. Anyway, I'm going to let this play. You probably noticed when I was talking back there, recorded on the crappy sound on the camera, that there was a momentary pause where the sound cut out. That was at the file change position. I've got it set for 5-minute files, so every 5 minutes it's going to change to a new file.
We're just going to take a little drive up the freeway here. I'm just going to make a little loop drive. Go over the bridge, through the tunnel, and back home. This is just a drive that I'm doing just for testing this camera out. It's a little bit brighter today. It's still a bit overcast, but there is some blue sky, and there's some white puffy clouds. So now with the HDR recording turned off. Everything else is set to automatic. White balance is automatic. Exposure is set to 0. In other words, no over or under exposure compensation. I'm just having everything set on automatic, with the exception that the high dynamic range, or wide dynamic range as they call it, has been turned off. Everything else is using the factory settings, so we can get a good idea of what this will look like out of the box.
Also, I imagine that the reason why they've done the reversed image on the reverse camera, or the back view camera, is so that it appears, especially if you put it in this mode, like this, where you put everything in sync, that this was how it would appear in your rearview mirror. The left side of the road is on the left side of the screen in the mirror, and that's how it shows up on this image.
Probably okay to speed today, as there's just been a 7-car pileup northbound approach to the tunnel. So that means the police are going to have their hands full dealing with that. So I can probably get away with going a little over the speed limit on this freeway and not have to worry too much about Smokey the Bear waiting for me.
Another thing to note is when the memory card is formatted in the camera, it is formatted in FAT32 mode. It does support 128 gigs, as this is what this has been recorded on, was a 128 gig memory card. But I had to format it in the camera in order for it to recognize the memory card. And I had to format the card back in my other camera once I restored it back to regular service.
Highway is kind of a bit of a roller coaster. There's dips and bumps all over the place because the rockets that designed it built it over an old landfill. And guess what happens to anything built over an old landfill? Yep, you got it. The garbage that's under the ground eventually rots and creates a void, which means they have to keep coming back and fixing the highway at that one spot right there. They've repaired that probably a half a dozen times in the last 3 or 4 years, and they keep having to come back. There's another section here where the highway is heaving. You got dips all over the place. That was our previous government, because they promised to build a highway and they wanted to get the project fast-tracked. So yeah, they built the highway all right, but they didn't remediate the land properly prior to building the highway. So now we'll be paying for it for probably the next 5 or 6 years, where they have to keep coming back and repairing the sections of the road that dip all over the place. Of course, when the current government holds the previous government's feet to the fire over that, their response is, well, we built it. We said we were going to build it, but we built it. Yep, give them credit for building it, but not building it properly. That's the problem. Put on full regenerated braking here and bring the car to a stop without even touching the brakes. What the hell are these people doing? You've got an open lane. Just keep going straight. No wonder you see so many accidents on bridges. People pulling bullshit, stupid maneuvers like that. You got a straight lane. Keep going straight. You don't have to slam on your brakes to cut over to the other lane. This is a reversible lane bridge that we're on now. They just recently reconfigured it so that the center divider can actually be moved. So there's 4 lanes going the other direction now and 3 lanes going this direction. They did reduce the speed from 90 down to 70 on this bridge because they made the lanes narrower to compensate for this divider to my left that they can switch back and forth. Yeah, nobody seems to have noticed that the new speed is 70 because everybody's still driving down here at about 90. If you slow down to 70 at the speed limit, you'll create such a massive tie-up behind you, and then you'll get everybody that's swerving to go around you because people around here drive like maniacs. Hence the reason for having a dash cam. Hence the reason for having a dash cam with front and back camera, so you can photograph the jackasses behind you as well as in front of you. Now, for some unknown reason, everybody just slowed down from 90 to about 50. Here we go again. come to a complete standstill. Hey, you never know, this video might end up going up on Richmond Learns to Drive, because that's where I am right now. Probably one of the worst spots in the Lower Mainland to drive. Like, this is a freeway. It's not rush hour. It's 1:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday. The last time I came down here, and I wish I had a camera, but I was on my bike, so I didn't have a camera with me, or this clown would have gone up on YouTube and whatever else I could post it up on. There was a guy driving in the left lane, going 10 below the speed limit, staying parallel to the guy in the right lane who was also going 10 below the speed limit. There were no cars at all whatsoever in front of him. The guy in the right lane sped up a bit. He sped up a bit to stay alongside of him. The guy in the right lane slowed down. He slowed down. When I finally got the chance, here's why this breakdown. A Toyota has broken down. They never break down. You should buy a real car like a General Motors. Anyway, when I finally did get past the guy, he was head down texting on his phone while driving down the freeway. Seems to be a problem here. They have to have a sign up to tell people no handheld devices. But yeah, just a little bit further ahead on this is the stretch of the road where the guy was driving at 70. And then the guy next to him was going the same speed. It was like the guy in the left lane was maintaining whatever speed the guy in the right lane was doing. He was going to be Mr. Policeman and make sure that nobody got past him. And he wasn't even watching where he was going. He was texting. He was probably doing selfies of himself, posting videos of himself doing this stunt, and had this huge lineup behind him.
it was interesting to see how it's going to look now that I've thoroughly cleaned the lens, because even though that lens had a lens protector on it, there was a film of dirt, like grease, on the lens. So I took the camera out and I polished the lens off. What a difference it's made.
Here's the 7-car pileup from a little while ago. People just don't know how to drive, do they?
I do believe that that's a cop. That's his lights are flickering in the top screen. They're in behind me now. And no, his lights aren't really flashing. Those are going to be his LED daytime running lights that are having an interaction with the shutter on the camera. For the last little bit here, I'll just let it go in the front camera mode just so you can see how it handles the bright sky with the sun right at the top of the screen. Polarizing filter added to the lens would eliminate that dash glare. I might check something like that out for a project to see if I can eliminate the glare. But overall, I'm overly happy with the picture quality on it. I don't know that it gives quite the contrast that my other camera does, but it's totally acceptable. And the fact that I've got the rear view camera as well as the front facing camera means this one's going to be a keeper. I think it's going to do a good enough job for recording images just for use in the event that I get hit. It's always better to have the front and the back view, so that in the unlikely event that someone hits me, I'll have evidence, front and back, to show what really happened. Now what we need is companies to put out cameras that have 4, so you can put one in each window looking out the left and the right side.